everyone, so now that we know how to simplify, multiply, and divide radicals, we're going to take a look at how to add and subtract them. Well, specifically radical expressions, and today it's going to be pretty simple. It's level 1, so let's get started. All right, so the development for today is to simplify the expression below. We have 2x plus 5x. Hopefully you recognize that these are like terms and that all you have to do is add the coefficients here. So we have 2x and 5x. They're like terms. We can add them. So 2 plus 5 gives us 7. And then we just bring down that x. Notice how we didn't really do anything with the x. It kind of just tags along. We only focus on the coefficients. So we want you to keep this in mind for today's lesson. So before we can start adding radicals, we're going to talk about like radicals. So just like terms, there are like radicals. So these are radical expressions that contain the same radicand. Remember, a radicand is the number underneath the radical symbol. So an example of like radicals are 4 radical 2 and negative 10 radical 2. These are like radicals because they both have that 2 as a radicand under the radical symbol. Another set is 25 radical 6, just radical 6, and then negative 1.5 radical 6. So I gave you these different examples because it shows that the numbers in front don't really have anything to do with the fact that they're like radicals. It all depends on the number that's underneath the radical symbol. So here they all have that 6, so that means these are all like radicals. All right, one other thing to notice before we start adding is the invisible radical coefficient. So when a radical does not appear to have a coefficient, the coefficient is 1. Just like if we were to just have an x by itself, so say we had x by itself, technically that has a coefficient of 1. So it's the same thing with radicals. So if we have just radical 5, that means the invisible coefficient is 1 radical 5. So that's really important for today when we're adding these radicals to know that there's that invisible 1 in front. All right, so let's get started with adding and subtracting. So in order to add and subtract radicals, the radicands must be the same. So if you do not have like radicals and the radicals aren't the same, you cannot add them or subtract them. You can multiply them and divide them. That's a whole different story, but you're not able to add or subtract them. Just like if we don't have like terms, we can't combine them. Same thing. If we don't have like radicals, we cannot combine them. So it's the first thing that we need to keep in mind. They have to be the same. So if they do have like radicands, then we're going to do the following. We're going to add or subtract, whichever one it tells us to do in the expression, the coefficients. So remember, coefficients are the numbers in front of the radical, the number outside the radical. So we're going to add or subtract those first. And then we leave the radicand alone. You do not add the radicands. Just like we left the x alone when we combined 2x and 5x, we left the x alone, it kind of just tagged along. We're going to do the same thing with the radical. It's going to just tag along. We're not going to add the numbers on the inside. So here's an example. We have 2 radical 2 plus 5 radical 2. They're like radicals because they both have the same radicand, so I know that we can add them. So what we're going to do is we're going to just focus on the coefficients, and we're going to add those together. So we have 2 plus 5. That gives us 7. And then just bring down that radical 2. Notice, it is not radical 4. We're not adding, we're not multiplying anything with the radicands. We are leaving them alone. So the answer to this is just 7 radical 2. So treat this like a variable that you're not even going to touch. You're going to leave it alone. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Simplify the expression below. So we have 6 radical 10 minus radical 10. Now, if you want to, you can write that invisible 1 in front to help you understand what's going on here and what you would have to do. And then I'm going to just circle the coefficients. So we have this 6, then we have this minus 1. 6 minus 1 gives us 5. And then you just bring down that radical. Remember, don't add or subtract anything inside the radicals. Bring down the radical and leave the radicand alone. So only focus on the coefficients. And that's it. So let's take a look at one more. 23 radical 7 plus 7 radical 7. They're like radicals. They have that same radicand, so we know we're able to add them. I'm going to circle the coefficients. We're going to add those together. 23 plus 7 gives us 30. And then just bring down that radical 7. Don't add the 7s. And that's it.